So I guess I'll make a little quick video talk about this, but it won't end up being quick anyway. It'll end up being probably about half an hour, but I'm wanting to watch something at 5:30 anyway. But anyway, right, so I don't know how old this video is. I mean, it could be old, but someone just reposted it, so I don't know if they just posted it because it happened recently, or, it could have been one of these clips going around for a while. But we've basically they're outside, I think they're outside number 10, similar to what, Fiona Rose Diamond and also other groups which might be in opposition or on the other side, such as that Jodie Mrs. Kent. She's kind of like on people are calling them far-right groups, but, Fiona Rose Diamond is not far-right, it's just against the government digital ID, right? So, but people like that have been outside number 10, with like megaphone or making announcements or speeches and protesting and that. But on this occasion, there was like some sort of explosion, right? And the police had this territorial support group, right? Now, you can see some of the police badges here, but they arrested this guy and they put him in the police van, right? Now, what happened is, I think we got her name, because I think she's Vicky Wicks. Was it her? Anyway, one of the sergeants was called Vicky Wicks because it says it on a uniform that she's called, or Lucy. Sorry, Lucy Wicks, right? Lucy Wicks was the sergeant, but there was actually a number of officers, including this guy. Got a couple of them as badge numbers. So they basically got this. It says this. By the time he'd put all these words over the top, it was making it harder to see their badges and ID. So they arrested a guy and they let him go, actually. They had him in this van here and they were questioning him and they were going to charge him, or they arrested him and then they actually released him and let him go. So he got released. But because of this explosion or whatever, now they said, these are the exact words that the officers said, I'm quite certain. The officers said that he was arresting him under the Explosives Act. So he didn't say the date of the act. He didn't say which date the act was. He just said, I'm arresting you under Section 8 of the Explosives Act, right? Now, I'm going to replay that back just to confirm that I'm not wrong on that, but I'll check it, and if I'm wrong on it, fair enough. But if you go to Section 8 of the Explosions Act, it's completely and totally irrelevant, right? It's like some kind of just random non-related matter in the act, so being arrested or whether you're carrying anything. It's just kind of like some supporting piece that isn't actually relevant, right? So he didn't actually. When the officer said, I am arresting you on Section 8 of the Explosives Act, he was wrong. He didn't actually arrest him so he actually was not using the power, and he made a statement which was incorrect. So he was in error. What it turns out is there is the Explosive Substances Act, right? Now that's 1883, the other one's 1875. Now, Section 8 of the Explosive Substances Act is to do with arresting persons and checking boats in London or vehicles or persons for explosive substances. But this is the thing, right? Now, it turns out when you read these acts that if you purchase something which was made in a licensed factory and it's lawful to manufacture it and possess, like a firework, right? It's not illegal, right? It's not illegal to have possession of it, or even to let it off, right? Now, if you had a barrel of gunpowder or some thing that one of the stupid I don't know, people make stuff out of manure or God knows what. I better be careful talking about this because I might end up on the MI5 scanning thing, right? But I mean, this is purely as an example, right? On TV, on movies, on fictional movies, like MacGyver or whatever, they make explosives out of paper clips and God knows what, fertilizer, God knows. I mean, I wouldn't know how to do that. I'm clueless about it. And then you can actually get like on James Bond films, you've got that, C4 that they have in a briefcase on what it looks like plasticine or whatever. Stuff like that, which is not lawful to have unless you are like a licensed police bomb disposal unit, right? But things like little poppers, firecrackers, and things which were made on license in the UK with a market to be sold to the public and with a market to be actually let off in public, like at a public firework display or whatever, right? Now, that is different law. Now, but that act allows them to search, right? Search for explosives, but they're not searching for illegal explosives, right? Because what actually happens is that they try to use the act to search you for if you've got like any lawful fireworks, and then they've got probably try and prosecute you, right? God knows what for setting them off, like maybe disturbing the peace or something like that. But this is actually where the proper law, this is where the error in law is. Well, I'm pretty sure in that video that the officer arrested him wrongfully, because if he says that he's using a different act to what it is and he arrests him under that of a statement, that's unlawful arrest, right? But he got released anyway. But so now, actually, explosives and incidentries and things like that goes all the way back to the very, very, very first police acts, Met Police Act, and they're not like separate acts. They're actually part, believe it or not, they're actually included in the Met Police Act themselves, right? Because you've got loads of little misdemeanors and summary offences, right? So like in the Met Police Act 1839, which is like mainly the second one, there was one previously before that, and then they had the Bus Street Runner Acts as well. But here, there's a section called LIV, L-I-V, right? They're not numbered sections, they're lettered sections, L-I-V. So in section L-I-V, and there's also a list of summary offences, but offence number 5... Oh, no, sorry, 15. Let me get my numbers correct, right? I'm correcting myself here, right? 15. And this is what it says. It says, every person who shall wantonly discharge any firearm or throw or discharge any stone or other missile to the damage or danger of any person, or make any bonfire or throw or set fire to any firework. So that is to throw a firework, throw it, actually to ignite it, set fire to it, so to let it off, right? But only to the damage or danger of any person. Now, you could have that. You could have this, like you could have police actually at a firework demonstration when everybody's got fireworks on them, right? Every single you could have like 100 people, right, in a park at a bonfire, and every single one of them could have fireworks in their pockets, sparklers, like those little like bombs that make a pop, right? Bangers, right? And possibly even 1 or 2 fireworks, right? You can have those in your pockets, right, on you, right? But this is actually throw or discharge any stone or other missile to the damage or danger of any person, or make any bonfire or throw any firework or let it off, right? Every person who shall wantonly discharge, so discharging a fire, so you fire a gun in the air, but where's the situation where you might fire a gun in the air, like at a race, like if you've got a boat race, like, or if you're a marathon track or something, or a college, like maybe some colleges or universities might have had those firearms. Like a farmer might just like shoot a clay pigeon, that's discharging a firearm. It says any stone or other missile, so that could include like a Black Widow catapult as well, right? Now, I'm not suggesting that, you actually attack anyone, right? But, right, this is the thing. Now, these offences, and this is what the police are going to hate this, right? But this is fact. In that act, it says that privileges apply as if this act is never made, right? In both of the Met Police Acts, the first and second one, right? And previously. It says that. So, but at the time, you could have up to 20 people participating in a petition or collecting signatures or advertising it or doing some kind of messy civil process, but not more than 20 people, right? They might be investigating something, right? But you could have 10 people trying to collect signatures of another 10 people, right? But it wouldn't usually be a huge, massive number of people, right? But you could potentially be in that situation. Some of these offences were like parking, blocking the road, or even taking placards down the pavement, or ringing doorbells and stuff like that, right? They were all minor, summary, misdemeanor sort of offences, right? Now, this is the thing. Obviously, if you kill someone or shoot someone, right, and they die, then that is a separate offence, right? Because you've got, murder, manslaughter. Obviously, if you assault someone, there's assault. If you punch them or hit them, right? But this is specifically to do with firearms and projectiles, right? Now, this offence here would be eligible for privilege if you were lawfully using privilege, right? Now, if you had been to, at the time, you wouldn't have more than 20 people, but if you did, and you'd done it properly, you would have gone to a jury or a judge and 3 justices, and you would have got permission or consent to attach privileges, and then you would have got an order to prove that you're using them. Well, your petition to Parliament would prove it if you've got under 20 people, but if you were over 20 people, then the petition itself wouldn't be sufficient. In fact, that would prove that you haven't got permission if there were over 20 people supporting it, which is where you get your William Penn, William Mead situation, right? But if you had got consent and if you had got permission and you had got court order, then you can enlarge 20. You can enlarge as many people as you want, right? So if you've enlarged, 50 people and they're stood outside Parliament, right? Effectively, you're officially privileged, and you aren't liable to the courts. I mean, you might be able to be prosecuted by Parliament and be called into Parliament at the bar, but that's different, right? We're talking about the normal police arresting you under these normal offences and crimes under the common law, right? So you wouldn't actually now. We're talking about if you were actually using these as part of a demonstration or protest, right? I'm not suggesting that you actually, fire them at people, like when someone threw an ice cream over Nigel Farage, right? Because that's kind of different. I'm talking about if you're using them as to promote or advertise, right? Or to just, draw attention. Because, you can have like a firecracker, right? You can have like, what do you call them? I've totally forgot what you call them now. I just said it earlier. A banger, right? You can have a banger to draw attention, right? Because you have a town crier who draws attention. I mean, some might say, well, it frightens people, but you're not eligible to frighten. You're not liable to cause offence by frightening people, because look at the Obscene Publications Act. You've got exemptions for the public good. So it's not obscene, otherwise it might offend people or upset them with obscenity, right? It's the effects on the public, right? Well, whenever you're doing a public supported cause or campaign, it's always for the public good of the people who support it, right? So you're not actually liable. And this is what the police can't get their head around when they come out of police college, and particularly senior officers, and when they've been doing it wrong for a long time. They don't like it and they can't get their head around it. So, I mean, I'm not talking about, firing a catapult through a glass window. I'm not talking about throwing fireworks into private property. Because remember, in the Riot Act, you're not meant to be allowed to have exemption if it's a private property or private land, like in someone's garden. Now, a lot of firework displays are on private land and are on private property, right? But you've been invited on there. So, a lot of bonfires are at private house, so what happens if a rocket goes through someone's window, right? It wasn't intentional. But we're talking about being on public land and public property, right? So if you're on public land and public property, then you're not liable for anything that gets broken or gets damaged, obviously by accident or not intentionally, right? But now I would suggest that if you can have a situation where you're on private land and you let a firework off and it accidentally goes through a window and breaks it, does the owner want to try and prosecute you, or would you just say, I'm sorry about that, and they claim it off the insurance, right? This is a question. But if you're on public land and public property, and if you let a firework off just to as like, to entertain or to make a point or to draw attention, and you didn't intend to hurt anyone, like you find it, up in the air or whatever, or just to make a bang, to draw people's attention, you can use that. Now, if it's a lawful firework anyway, and if it's manufactured in England and you're a legal right to have it and use it like a firework display, you can use it to advertise or promote a campaign. Now, that's going to give their police a headache, and they really won't like it. And I don't want to be the person who has to argue it because they're already ignoring privileges for other things. For like in the Criminal Damage Act, you can be privileged on public land, right? So the Criminal Damage Act, well, you see that's in the Criminal Damage Act, right? On public land, like if you're in a park, right, you can be privileged. So it says that the Criminal Damage Act covers you for any damage that would cause from those fireworks on private land, right? If you're privileged, because it's got it in it, and then the police really, really would not like that at all. But that's the point. And then you get to when they're putting fireworks on ULEZ cameras and stuff like that, which no one has got into the court and done the proper correct legal argument for it yet, because none of the criminal lawyers are up to it. None of the criminal lawyers get it. I've tried to explain it to them and they won't do it. They're so trained and schooled in defending someone, putting a defence in, that they don't know how to make a privileges representation, and then they don't know how within that, which is not a defence, it's not a defence against the charge, they don't know then how to sort of like explain to the judge and justify how it can be privileged and how the other acts encompass it. But when you do that, you're not making a defence, because it's like you're explaining how a right works and applies. I mean, this is what the police need to understand. When the thing that the courts are really struggling with at the moment, and they really hate this. Firstly, they don't want to accept representations from people who are joined as a party. So if an individual is getting prosecuted, the police will prosecute them as a private individual, but they're not acting as a private individual, and that means that their friends and colleagues in part of the campaign can make a representation, right, on their behalf for them in the group. And then you've got to recognise that it is a public action, right? And that is similar to COP 10. Now, a court will recognise COP 10 when you get it, but they won't recognise it when everyone's signed to a petition or advertising a petition and they're joined as a party. The courts and police and CPS are just being stubborn about that, blatantly stubborn. They won't acknowledge it. I mean, they're just not on the page, right? And then when you acknowledge that, then anyone can make a representation. Well, the police won't even let you telephone them and speak to people who are being detained, right? Now they won't put you through to them, so that's illegal. If they've got a political campaign and cause, and you're joined as a party and you're signed to the same petition campaign or advertising it, you've got a legal right to speak to them, right? And the police, that's illegal. So that is a police strategy. It is a new police policy and process procedure which obstructs rights and prevents people from making lawful representations, right, in the observation of due process of law. So that's criminal. It's actually an abuse of process and probably a perversion of the course of justice as well, right? So that the police are in deep, deep trouble already. And then, so how you properly represent a right is when, let's say you already got prosecuted for something, right, and you're in probation, right, and you're poorly, and the probation, you go to the doctor and you give the probation officer your doctor's paperwork, right, and then the probation service, right, go into the court for you, right? Oh, they're going into the court for me, and they're going to make a representation, right? Now, what they're doing when they do that is they're representing your rights, okay, under the overriding objectives of the criminal procedure rules, recognising the rights of the defendant, right? And possibly even the needs of other cases or causes, because there's a case, you're making a case to the court that you're poorly, right? So you're not defending the charge, right? The probation service aren't defending you. They're not defending you. It's not part of your defence, right? But they can go into a court and make a representation in law to say that something should be done or should not be done, or they're laying a document to the court and they're making a representation on behalf of that document into effect, right? But they're not defending you, but it's a right. Now, that is actually how it's supposed to work for parliamentary causes and political campaigns, right? If you've got a petition or the right to petition, but they're not taught this, but it's the same, I call it species of law, right? It's the same species of law and representation. Now, I don't even think Steve Barrett, the barrister or black belt barrister, get this yet. I'd love to have them in a room and talk to them about it and get a recorded interview and press them on it, push them on it, question them on it, right? I mean, you might have to, are we interrogating them are we interrogating them like the police do? It would be a amazing feat to corner black belt barrister or Steve Barrett. I don't dislike these people at all, right? And question them on it. Now, I have spoken to Alan Robertshaw on a number of occasions on the phone, right? And I have put some similar type of things to him, right? And he trains barristers. He's never said one time wrong, but he's kind of like, oh, right, umming and ahhing, right? He's like, it's not, this is not anything nasty or bad. This is just like, a casual conversation. Like, he's not saying that I'm wrong, but I put these things to him, and it's like, I'm not paying him to represent me and going to the court on it, right? But it seems like that he might not be the right type of lawyer to represent you on it, but who is, And it turns out that there aren't really that many lawyers who can or who will. I mean, look at Jeremy Johnson, and he's been promoted now to be a High Court judge, right? He was hired by the Lord Hanningfield, by a member of the House of Lords. Now, my strong belief is that if you are called to the House of Lords, right, if you are made a peer, right, you've meant to have, made certain achievements in life, and you've got to have certain knowledge and experience. And I would think it would be a lot of them are meant to be lawyers, right? If you do. I would not appoint anyone to the House of Lords if they didn't know their own privileges, right, or what their privileges were, and I would and it should be compulsory for them to learn them, right? I know they've got a privileges committee that specialises in deals with it, but they're the ones who make determinations and official judgments and orders on it, right? That doesn't mean to say that other members don't know it.